thank you for taking some time and sharing your story with us here.
I love this, and I love the name of your podcast, the Toddcast. When I heard that, I said, "Okay, first of all, with the most respect, it sounds like an SNL thing, right? The Toddcast."
Totally does, right?
But who is ever gonna forget that name?
Yeah,
Nobody.
well, I was working in radio here in Vancouver, doing the afternoon show at a rock station, and one of my producers was like, "Dude, you have to start a podcast called the
Yeah,
Toddcast. Like, you have to.
yeah,
It's so
I agree.
it's so wrong if you don't." And I'm like, "Yeah, as soon as maybe I will." And then I got let go from radio, and I was like, "I'm gonna steal your idea if that's cool." And I've been doing this now for 9 years. It's crazy.
Amazing. So before, like, the onslaught of podcasts.
Yeah, right before it, like, yeah, like I said, radio, they're always like, start a podcast, do something on the side. I'm like, yeah, cool, as long as you pay me more money. Like, it's still,
Yeah.
it's still something. I can't just put shit out. Like,
No, and it's a lot of work, right?
that's a ton of work. Like, people,
I'm just turning my
when
do not disturb on.
yeah, when people expect something of you, they don't just like want it sometimes. They want all the time, right? And my thing was like, yeah, I'll start a podcast, but I need to be compensated for it. But as soon as I got let go from radio, I was like, all right, let's try. And yeah, it's
Good.
killer. It's killer.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And you're quick, of course, researching your life, your career is like amazing. It's
Thank you.
freaking amazing. So I think that everybody will know you from the Real Housewives of Toronto.
Yes.
Yeah. So probably not a bad place to quickly start.
No, no, of course, and believe me, that's, the show is the show is a lot of, the show is why I'm here. I just, the show. Oh my gosh, I watched the show the other day because I never actually watched the show,
Right.
and a girl from Australian Rolling Stone said, "I really want to watch the first episode." So before I sent it to her, I thought, "Oh, I really want to take a look," because we'd done a really good interview. So I thought, I want to take a look at this. I watched it and then I went upstairs and I snaked a drain in my son's shower, and snaking the drain was more appealing than watching the show. I was just like, who the F did they like? It's distasteful for me. I look at myself and I go, "Oh, gross, she's so annoying." But it's the edit. I'm
It
not
I
annoying.
was gonna
I'm
say
not an
to you,
annoying person.
like,
I'm
how
so
annoying
chill.
was that? Because you had to like, there had to be some stuff that they were like, they definitely took it out of context. They put it on because it's like that whole shock value of people like, "Holy fuck, did that actually just happen?"
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny you say that because the shock value stuff was me being the Jim Halpert, like looking at the camera going, are you seeing what's going on here? Like when they take us to a plastic surgery party and everybody's drinking champagne coupes and eating mushrooms on toast while this drugged woman is walked into the room and they start doing plastic surgery on her live. And
Mhm.
I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And everybody else was like, what? It's fabulous. What's wrong with you? I was like, oh my God.
And so,
Yeah.
like, what was the best thing about doing that show, and what was the worst thing, do you think?
So the best thing was the platform it gave me, because it did give me, I'll say this, it gave me a great platform. All I wanted to do in the beginning, the whole reason why I got involved in it. Wait, are we doing the podcast? Is this the podcast?
We're doing it.
Okay, sorry. I'm such an idiot. My kids will laugh.
I know
Um
I call it the Toddcast, but I should probably just call it like the Train of Thought podcast.
it is. But that, that's a sign of a good host. You make me very relaxed. No, so I wanted to do a reality television show. I have been a mom. I was doing freelance journalism. I wasn't doing radio shows anymore because I couldn't keep up with that with three boys all in school, all demanding after school activities, all that. I
Yeah.
had been a mom for maybe full time, I'd say 12 years, okay? Like up to my eyeballs in swim lessons and all of that stuff, hockey, all of that. And I said to my husband, my eldest was going into first year university. I said, I really would love to produce a reality show because on the side, I had been involved in a lot of charity fundraisers, coordinating them, buying tables, stuff like that. And
Mhm.
I said, this is like $1 million listing, but for charity events, because the stuff that goes on here is great organic conflict. You put a red carpet out in Toronto in March and it turns into a slip and slide. Or you go in the kitchen when the chef is trying to prepare 1,500 rubber chicken dinners. Like, do you know what goes on with that? Like, it's just crazy and it's good organic conflict. So I said, this would make a great reality show. So I had no idea what I was doing. I think I Googled reality television show producers in Canada and I found this production company. I pitched it to them and they said, actually, it's not a bad idea for a show. But here's the thing, we're going to do Real Housewives of Toronto and we think you should be on Real Housewives of Toronto. And I went, no, why? And they said, because it can be like your sizzle reel. And then, like a la Lisa Vanderpump, you spin off into your charity show. And I was going, but I don't want to be on the show. I want to produce the show. And they said, this is a really easy way to do it. So I thought, you know what? I'm kind of bored. I had two friends. Bethany Frankel was an acquaintance of mine. I'm hesitant to say a friend because I'm always thinking people are going to call her and she's going to go, who the hell is Kara Alloway? But she was an acquaintance of mine. She worked at a restaurant up the street from me. Kyle Richards was a friend of mine. Kathy Hilton was a friend of mine. Kim Richards. So I knew several people that had done Housewives. I'd been around them when they were filming. I thought, I could do that with my eyes closed. And if that's what it takes, okay. My husband said, no problem, as long as me and the kids have nothing to do with it. We will not be on it. We will be nowhere near it. I said, no, of course you're not going to be anywhere near it. um, and then, so I said, I'll do it. So away I went to do it. So the best thing to come out of the show was that platform when the show wrapped. And I mean, the ashes were falling down all around me. I was able to make my way to Los Angeles. I got an agent to represent me as a producer. I was able to pitch my show to legitimate production companies. We did the sizzles for my show, and I was able to push that agenda forward.
Mm,
Furthermore, I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to write a novel. I knew I had a novel in me. I knew it would be dealing with female relationships because I come from a very female centric background in the sense that, with the most respect to my father, rest in peace, and all my uncles, we are a very matriarchal family. The women rule the roost. I'm all girls, a family of all girls, all of my cousins, all girls. It's
mm,
very female centric. I went to an all girls family. So I have always been really fascinated by how women relate to other women, be it my mom relating to her sister-in-law, myself relating to my female cousin, just the way women relate to each other. I knew that was my novel. After I did Housewives, actually, even before, because in my participant agreement, my husband said, this might be the backdrop for your novel. So we're going to write this out of, they have a Bethany Frankel clause, which means they get a piece of the pie of everything you do from this point forward for the rest of your life. So yeah, it's called the
whoa.
Bethany Frankel clause because Bethany Frankel didn't have that. And that's why Bethany Frankel is going 1,000,001, 1,000,005, 1,000,010, because
Wow.
they didn't have that for her. So after they put that in and said, note to file. So my novel was excluded from that because he said this might be the backdrop. And after the first night of filming, I came home. I said two things. Number one, you think you're not in this show? Oh, you're in this show because I need someone to bounce off of because I have nobody. I am a peninsula all by myself. You have no clue. And then number two, you're right. It's a great backdrop for my book. So the novel will take place on the set of a reality television show, but it was crazy. It was really crazy.
And so, like, what did your husband and Baron and Hunter and Christian, like, what did they think about it?
Well, first of all, they shook their head and were like, "What have you got us into now?" And it's funny, my kids held out because the children, even though they're minors, and my youngest was an actor, a union member. He did voice work and
Oh,
commercials
cool.
and stuff. They held out on signing the participant agreement until the last possible moment. They really didn't want to have anything to do with it. They just said, "It's not our thing. We don't want to be part of it." They had seen me filming, and the when I say filming and direction, it makes people think it's scripted. It's not scripted, but okay, Kara, you're in the kitchen and you're really frustrated with this situation. Okay, go.
Mm,
So,
mm.
not scripted, but improv and leading you. So my kids really didn't want to do it. My husband was like, all right, I'll do it, but I will say what I'm going to say. He's a lawyer, and he's like, I do work for the banks. I have to be really careful, Kara, about what I'm putting out there because think about it. Like the Canadian
Sure.
banks, my goodness, he still wears gowns when he goes to court. Like I'm surprised he doesn't still wear the wig. So he was very apprehensive about being involved, but my kids know. And then even I was filming a scene with my youngest and we were packing to go north to the cottage. And I remember that my youngest is a really animated kid and he was laughing with me and joking around. And the director said, no, no, I want you to act like this is really boring and you really hate doing this with your mom. And my youngest came to me after and he said, I never want to do, he was only 11 at the time. He said, I never want to do something like that again because they made me act like I didn't like you. And I didn't like that because I know it's not acting. And everyone who sees this is going to think I don't like my mom. And that's not our relationship. And I was like, whoa, okay, I get it.
Mm,
So,
mm.
yeah.
Interesting to get the
Hmm.
backstory of that style of a show. Do you ever get, like, used to the cameras kinda being around? I mean, I would imagine it's just kinda like eventually you have to, right?
Oh, you absolutely do. You think you'll never forget that you're mic'd, and you think
Yeah,
you'll never forget that the cameras are on, and that's a page in the narrative of my novel. The main character is sitting in a limo with her husband, and she's talking away, and then she's like, "Oh, shit, I forgot the mics are on. The mics are hot because the mics are always hot. Even if you're not being filmed, someone always has a headphone on listening to you. You're always being recorded. The mics are always hot." And I thought, I will never forget that, but of course you do, and you let your guard down and you go, "Oh, frick, I can't believe I have to do this today. All right, blah blah blah." And
yeah.
whether or not that makes it to the show is not important. What it means is someone's always listening. Oh, this is what sets her off. Okay, let's make
Mhm.
sure we get that beat. Let's make sure we
Ah,
capture that in this. So, and it's not scripted. I have to say this. Someone like an Alex Baskin, who was with Evolution that did Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, he now has 32 flavors and he does Vanderpump Rules. Someone like Truly Original that does Salt Lake City. Um, there's a couple other companies. They know how to do reality television, so it's entertainment, but it's not manufactured. There's a difference between augmenting reality television, which Alex Baskin, in my opinion, is a master at. He can add the music, he can linger a little long on Tom Sandoval's glance with the camera.
mm,
That to me is augmenting the reality, right? That's turning the viewer's head and saying, look over here, look what Tom's doing with his eyes.
yeah.
That's augmenting. What my production company did, because they had to do, because they didn't have a lot to work with, was they manufactured it. How'd they manufacture it? Frankenbiting and cherry picking, which, I'm not sure if you're familiar with those terms, but Frankenbiting is where my most famous scene is when I'm a lunatic. I go to a restaurant and some people went skinny dipping. They didn't go skinny dipping. They actually didn't go skinny dipping, but they started to go skinny dipping. They started to take their shirts off and their pants off and stuff in front of my minor children who were setting off a fireworks show at my cottage. And it was made to look like I was very upset with them because they had too much to drink. So every time, shame on me, because I would say, you got blind drunk and you undressed in front of my kids. Well, that's great for the producers because they could just cut and you got undressed in front of my kids. So it just looked like I was upset because people got blind drunk. So I go to lunch with this woman and she's there to say, like, I don't understand what your problem is. And I say to her, you listen to me. You come after me, I'll stand my own. You come after my kids, and flames will shoot out of my nostrils. Well, the producers, again, because they
Yeah.
wanted to make her look and the others look great, they cut that. So it becomes, you come after me. If you watch it, it's like the background is changing. The edit is so sloppy, and flames will shoot out of my nose. But here goes Kara looking like she is, what the hell is her problem? They had a couple drinks at her cottage. What's wrong? So that's classic Frankenbiting. Alex
Mm,
Baskin doesn't do that. Truly Original doesn't do that. The good producers don't have to resort to that sort of hack, excuse the
yeah.
expression, but it's hack editing. And then cherry picking. We were doing an interview and they were, asking me questions and they said, what do you think about wife swapping? So I sort of was like, okay. And so I said, well, maybe for some other people, not for me. How that came out is a promo for the show. They're like, the housewives talk about their feelings about tequila. And, one person's going, oh, I love to sip it. I like it in the spicy margarita. And then they cut to Kara. Maybe for some other people, but not for me. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me? That
Not even
wasn't about
remotely
tequila.
what that
No.
quote is tied
So
to, like, what? What?
that's cherry picking. Yeah. So
Okay.
as a result, you can see how you get a character who, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, I look at Kara Alloway on Real Housewives of Toronto and she's distasteful. She's
Mm,
full of herself because everybody was asking me questions that first night. Where do you like to vacation? Where'd you go to university? What do you like to do on date night with your husband? That was all taken out. It became a running monologue of Kara going, oh, we just came back from Banff. Oh, we do yoga. Oh, we do, like, so distasteful. So
mm,
beware of the edit. And when you're watching, beware of the edit. Again, the good production companies, they know how to produce art and entertainment. And I do think that reality television is art. It elicits a distinct emotional response. So it meets the criterion for what is art, and it causes the viewer to emote and to, to react to what they're seeing. So in that sense, they have an emotional response. So it's art.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. They're looking for engagement, and simply that's it. That's what they're looking for. People to be like, "Holy crap, I got to watch more." Interesting, interesting.
Mhm. Mhm.
Of course, lots of people binge not only the Real Housewives of Toronto, but they go around the world. They're everywhere. What do you binge watch when you find?
Mm. That's interesting. You know what I binge watch? I really like cooking shows, I gotta tell you. I
Mm,
really binge watch cooking shows, and one of the shows that I'm selling right now is a food-centric show. I'm not so much for the stand and stir shows. I like the travel cooking shows and those sorts of ones.
like the
But
Anthony Bourdain style, or
yes, love that. So the one that I'm working on right now, it's called Extreme Foodies. It's really fun. It's a group of, I call them mild-mannered individuals who have real life jobs, ad execs, accountants, and they are passionate about food and they know everything about the history and science of food. So maybe on a Thursday night, one of them will pick up the phone and say, I got a reservation for this amazing restaurant in Italy. They have infinite resource. They all hop on a plane, go to Italy, show up at the restaurant, order everything on the menu, not for gluttony, but to taste everything, and they can
sure.
comment and talk about it. I mean, we did tacos in Tijuana for our sizzle, and they were able to talk about the history of tacos, how they started in Lebanon. From Lebanon, they came across to Mexico. The what is it, tacos el pastor, the ones they cut off, those are originally from Lebanon, and then they went to Mexico City and then to Tijuana, and now they've made their way up into Los Angeles. They know the history. They know if fried chicken, the temperature it has to be cooked at so that the chicken is moist and the outside is crunchy, and they can eat
My
60
stomach is
pieces
starting
of
to
fried chicken.
grumble.
I know. We did, how many tacos did we do? We were there for 24 hours shooting a sizzle reel and we did 42 tacos. Again, not gluttonous because you have a bite, you
Sure.
discuss it, you talk about it, but very interesting. I love the science and history of food. I find it fascinating.
That's great. I'm the same way. If I wasn't doing this, like broadcasting or radio or whatever, I would have definitely gone down the chef route. Like for my house, I have two little kids as well. I do probably 80, 85, 90% of the cooking. I just love it. It's something about it, put on some good music, crack a bottle of red or crack a beer or whatever, just chill. Something about that. The
It's
whole,
creative, right?
yeah, like from the start to the end, it's just something about it. I love it.
That's interesting. That's like my youngest. He's very creative that way too. He loves to
Oh,
cook.
cool. How are you in the kitchen? Are you a good cook? Like, what do you break it out if you're trying to impress buddies coming over?
Okay, so let me tell you something. I was not a good cook because with 3 kids, chicken tenders rule the roost, grilled cheese. When you have to go to swim practice and hockey and 3 people in different direction, you're throwing a ham sandwich in the back seat, go and eat something,
Yeah,
okay, or granola bar.
literally anything at this
Sorry.
point. Just please get something in you.
Yes, especially boys who like they define hangry, right? If they're not being fed before they are doing an activity, you're in trouble.
Mhm.
So then along came COVID and everybody moved home. And it was so nice because it was like a second chance.
Mm,
So I got to cook as an adult for adults who had time, who weren't picky eaters. It was so nice. And if you really want to know, my forte is Cuban food. Believe it or not, a ropa viejo. I can knock that out of the park. And I don't know how I gravitated to that. I
mm.
think I was like Googling recipes or something. And I thought, oh, I could do this. And this feeds a crowd. And, they're men. They like to eat and be filled up with their manly meat. So let's try it. And I did it and it was great. And then the next time I did, oh, I can't remember the beef one. I did a beef version. And I was talking to my girlfriend who's of Cuban descent. And she was like, oh my gosh, those are legit recipes. Like you're nailing it, Kara. I can't
Mm.
believe it. So
Nice.
who knew?
Yeah, no doubt. I want to talk about the Allure magazine and being was it the assistant editor? I think.
Assistant West Coast editor, dream job.
Freaking amazing. Like, how did you get that gig?
I love you. I'm so glad you asked me that. Let me tell you something. I was a hostess at a restaurant in Beverly Hills called the Bistro Garden. It's where Spago is now. As I said, it was down the street. Bethany was up the street at La Scala. I was down the street at the Bistro Garden. And I was a hostess and a private party coordinator. So it was a ladies who lunch restaurant, meaning we had no occupancy in the evening. It was a big lunchtime crowd, a
That's
lot like La
funny.
Scala, actually.
My wife has ladies who lunch here in Vancouver.
Really?
Yeah,
Really? Oh, that's fun. That's
that's
so
awesome.
fun.
Love it.
So we would get people like Kathy Lee Gifford. She'd come wheeling in with Cody in the stroller. We
No,
got Nancy Reagan. Oh, we had when I say the ladies who lunch, they were the ladies who lunch. But in the evening, the parties I would coordinate would be for local companies that wanted to rent out the whole restaurant because, as I said, we did not have a dinner time crowd. And one of my best clients was Condé Nast. They would have a party once a month for whoever was on the cover of Vanity Fair. So this was back in the day. I remember Ivana was on the cover in that yellow dress. It was a very iconic cover, Ivana Trump, and we had to do everything yellow. We had to do yellow linens, yellow florals, everything had to be yellow to match her in this yellow dress. And I got really, really close with the office manager at Condé Nast. So one night we were standing there, we were doing another Vanity Fair party. I can't remember who was on the cover. I want to say someone like Tom Cruise or something. It was really cool.
mm,
And I said, I always wanted to write for a magazine. It must be so cool to work. And she was like, well, actually, I'm the office manager, but I'll tell you something. I also work with hiring. So if you want to write for a magazine, send me samples of your work. No problem. Called up my mom because this was pre-internet. I know I'm dating myself, but called up my mom and said, I need some
real.
essays from university. So my mom sends me off essays. I pick Hamlet's fatal flaw of procrastination, fold it up, put it in the envelope, drop it off. She calls the next day and says, you're a jokester. I got the sample of your writing. Like, seriously? And I went, well, I've never been published, so I don't know what to send. And she said, okay, well, I'll tell you something. It's a good argument. I liked Hamlet's fatal flaw of procrastination. And we passed it around the office and we laughed. And I have a new magazine that's starting up. And the editor is Linda Wells, who is a newspaper reporter. And more than beauty experts, she wants to hire good writers. She wants to hire people who know how to take an investigative approach to the topics of fashion and beauty. And it seems like you're a good writer. It seems like you want to learn. Would you like to come and interview? So I said, sure. So literally the West Coast offices of these Condé Nast magazines are very sparse. So literally you're the assistant West Coast editor. The West Coast editor was a woman, first Peggy Orr and then later Evan Seidel. Evan Seidel was a costume designer, so she was always off working on set, and she'd just pop in maybe once every 2 weeks to say, what's happening in the West Coast?
Mm.
Peggy Orr was married to Eric Orr, who was a water artist, really cool. And again, she was, very busy. She'd just pop in. So I ran the West Coast offices. It was the dream job. And it was so cool because it was like this really cool high school. The girls from Vogue, Lisa Love and this other girl, they'd smoke in the hallways. And they were the really cool girls who always had like blazers with cut jeans before destroyed jeans were really in. And then there
Mhm.
was a magazine called Self that was a fitness magazine. And those girls always showed up in workout clothes to
I
work.
remember that.
And they were
I remember.
always off to the latest workout classes. The gentleman across the hall from me worked for Condé Nast Traveler, and he had always just got back from Australia, just got back from South Africa, just got back, and he'd tell me tales of his like great trips. It was like the coolest high school ever. And the people at Allure, the funny thing, our registered trademark was we always had the whitest teeth because people were always sending us tooth whitening because it was in the early days of tooth whitening technology. So
Yeah.
people were always sending tooth whitening creams and stuff like that. And we were always like, oh, ultra bright smiles. That's what we were known for.
Hmm, hmm. And then so how do you slide into the like full on editor for Ingenue?
So yeah, so then it was Ingenue magazine. So at one point, I sort of had an awakening. I tend to be very dramatic. I was watching Gone with the Wind, and Scarlett O'Hara was there saying, "I know, I'll go home to Tara." And I thought I had three friends that had been carjacked. LA was not really nice at that point. And I thought, you know what? It's only a matter of time before I'm carjacked. I feel like I've had my post-university fun here. I feel like I need to go home to Toronto. I don't know why, but I just felt like I needed to go home to Toronto. So
Mm,
I said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to leave this job. I'm going to go home to Toronto. I'm going to give it a year. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll come back and do something else because my resume was good and, see what I want to do. So I came home to Toronto literally within a week. This magazine Ingenue said, oh, we're looking to hire and you have Condé Nast experience and you've been an assistant West Coast editor. Do you want to do this? Sure, I'll do it. And it was a teen magazine. And my sister wrote for me. I hired really good writers because my sister was a great writer. She'd been writing for the Hamilton Spectator at that point.
mm,
And it was fun because it was a teen magazine. And with teens, you can't be, it was a lot like Allure because I can remember my publisher saying, "This is not Consumers Reports." And I said, "Yeah, but at the same time with teens, you have to be really honest. You can't be BSing them about like this zit cream is really great if the cream isn't great." And they want to know why it's great. Why is it great? Not just because you say it's great or a press release says it's great. So I
Mm.
was able to bring a lot of that Consumer Reports style that I had learned from Linda Wells, who said, "We do not kowtow to our advertisers. You can mention them by all means, but if their product isn't the best, I don't want you saying it's the best." And that would also drive the publishers at Allure crazy because they were like, "We have to include our advertisers." And she was like, "No." And that from that point on, if I read about a product in Allure, I knew it was good because it was in Allure. So I tried to bring that to my teen magazine, and it worked. And the teens liked it and they appreciated it. I mean, I can remember I was talking about young girls kissing other young girls, and it was a McLean Hunter publication at the time, and they were all up in arms. All the men's in the suits were like, "You can't talk about that in a magazine." And I went, "But that's what the teens want to discuss. They're having these feelings for other girls and they want to talk about it. We need to be the forum where they can feel safe to talk about it and read about it and discuss it." So I drove a lot of people nuts, but I guess that's my MO. That'll be
I
my
love it.
autobiography.
That's
She
yes.
drove us nuts.
See, like that's huge magazines.
Yeah.
Good for
They were
you.
good. They were good, and we had the fastest circulation growth in the history of McLean Hunter, and then McLean Hunter went, "Oh, crap, they're taking over our Flair audience. We gotta get them out of here," because, it was like robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
So they ended it, but
Wow.
it was cool.
So it's not much of a stretch then, really. Like your background, like Most Hated, is not like it's not odd for you to write this book.
No, it's not. You know what I am? Can I tell you what I am? Someone, after I finished Housewives, put a book into my hand by Dr. Phyllis Chesler, who is this 80-year-old psychologist. She lives in Manhattan, and she wrote this book, Woman's Inhumanity to Woman. Should be required reading. If you have daughters, get it in their hands by the time they're 14. She spends 7 pages of her introduction apologizing to the sisterhood for writing it, which to me speaks volumes. She's that
Well,
scared that she's going to offend people as a second generation feminist that she apologizes for writing it. But within the pages of the book, she identifies something called internalized female misogyny, which when we think of misogyny, we tend to think of men not treating women in the best way possible. But
mhm.
there exists internalized, or I call it misplaced female misogyny, which is women acting inhumanely to other women. And it starts at 8 years old in the playground because women are tribal. Men are not tribal like this. Women are tribal, and we have a hierarchy in the playground. And the ones at the top of the hierarchy are the ones that dictate what the behavior should be, what the discussions should be, what the games should be. And then you have these people like myself, the truth tellers, the independent thinkers. Sorry, it's what I am. And how do we get punished? We get gossiped about, we get shunned, we get, slandered, all of that. So I experienced this as an adult, but it starts at 8 years old in the playground. And when I look back, I think, well, I wasn't really that much of a truth teller or independent thinker, but I was very much an observer. I can remember being 8 and sitting on a swing and seeing one girl hold a rotten apple up to another girl. And that girl that got the apple in the face disappeared from school 2 weeks later. Because I guess that was a form of bullying. I think it traumatized her. And the
Mm.
girl that was holding the apple up to her face was a very popular girl. I remember I didn't do anything about it, which I felt really bad about. But also, I just remember observing and going, wow, look at how these girls treat each other. You better be careful, Kara. You better keep in step because if you get out of step, and then I don't know what happened. The dam broke or something like that. Ask my husband. He's like, why? Why are you always the independent thinker? But something happened. So I brought that to Housewives, which it's interesting. Before I did the show, we did this psychological analysis. It took 3 hours. They asked us all sorts of questions. I was trying to second guess it. Oh, what are they trying to find out? And when the show wrapped, I called the firm and I said, can I get a copy of my psychological analysis? It turns out, and again, this is in the narrative of my book, the ladies on the show have to do this psychological analysis. It's to find out what your hot spots are. My hot spots were I had a big dog, but I was scared of other big dogs and highway driving. Well, if they didn't have me shoot a scene in the park with my dog and another big dog, ding, 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 and a highway driving scene, I was the only character that had to shoot a highway driving scene. So they want to know what your hot spots are. But I asked the psychological assessment firm, can I have a copy of that? And they sent it to me and said, sure, we don't care. And the very first line said, Kara Alloway has very high emotional intelligence. So fast forward to I'm in LA. As I told you, I have a producer representing me. And I'm in this how to cast reality television session that I just fell into, very fortunately, with Jonathan Murray, who is the godfather of reality television. He did The Real World, he did The Simple Life. He is reality TV's
Mhm.
who's who A-list.
Mhm.
And he said, when you're casting a villain, the first thing you want to look for is someone with incredibly high emotional intelligence. And I was like in the room going, oh my gosh, the writing was on the wall from day one. I was the independent thinker. I was the truth teller with the emotional intelligence. Like there was no coming back from that. I was the villain before we even started filming.
Mm.
I was there for it. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, no kidding. It's almost like they put you in certain roles as they're casting, the members.
I think so. I think
Villainous.
they do.
They're villainous.
Yeah, well, read the book. So in the book, within the pages of the book, Zoe is the producer who wants to make this show successful at all costs. And it's funny because my son read the book and he went, "Oh, I know who Zoe is." And I said, "No, you don't know who Zoe is," because he was around for filming. I said, "You don't really, because Zoe is a combination of a lot of people. Just like characters are always a combination of a lot of people. Zoe is not one person. Zoe is a lot of people that I dealt with and that I worked with within the confines of the show.
Right.
And then some, because she's really off kilter and she will go to any length to make this show, which is called Talk of the Town within the pages of the story, the best, the most watched, because the gentleman who is directing this show is a Quentin Tarantino type bad boy director who has decided he's going to turn his attention to reality television and direct one season of a well-worn franchise. So you look at Talk of the Town and you go, "Oh, is that supposed to be Housewives?" I don't know.
Mm,
But
mm.
he's directing this and she wants to follow him to his next project. But he's also the reason why a lot of the women who sign up to be on this show sign up for it, because one is an actress and she's like, "Oh, well, maybe if I do this, he'll bring me to his next gig," and things like that.
Which happens.
Which happens.
Which happens. So
It does.
clearly, writing is huge in your world. Then it's big. How about music and stuff? Like, what did you grow up listening to? What were your parents playing? Like,
You
what was
know,
your
I
first
was
concert? All that stuff.
I had the worst taste in music, admittedly. I was very much like a show tunes person. I mean, I can remember my parents really liked Broadway a lot too, which is kind of interesting.
Mm.
Like I was listening to Evita before anyone knew what Evita was. I was always about that. I think maybe because I was a child actress, so I was exposed to theater. I had been in some plays when I was little. So I was never listening to, Queen and what everybody else was listening to. I was always listening to like show tunes and stuff like that. So when I did dabble in mainstream music, it would be crazy stuff like Cher or Bette Midler or things like that. It was bad. I can remember I had a party. It's funny you should say this. I had a party maybe when I was 17 or so, and I was in charge of the music. And I can remember someone looking across the room going, "What is this shit she's playing?" And I was like, maybe someone else should take over the music because, like,
Mhm.
I
You're like, I have no
clearly,
idea. Somebody else want to help out here?
yeah, exactly.
How about your first concert? What was it?
You too in Ottawa,
Oh,
but
see,
it
that's
was
pretty good.
like it was when I would say I want to say I was just graduated university. I had been graduated university maybe 2 years, and someone
Mm,
invited me to a U2 concert.
mm.
Yeah, which I liked U2, but it wasn't really my thing. I mean, I would have much rather gone to see Les Mis. Go figure. I'm a truth teller. I'm telling you the truth. Okay.
I love it. Do you ever get mistaken for another celebrity?
Yes. Why?
I'm
Who do you think? I
I'm
do a
seeing like
lot, actually.
Sarah Jessica Parker. Is that her name? Is that who it
Can I
is?
tell you something? Yes. And I was in the Hamptons last summer. I actually love Sarah Jessica Parker. So for me, that's the ultimate compliment. But I was in the Hamptons last summer and I went into the Alice and Olivia store
Mm,
and I was like, I had seen a dress in a magazine. I wanted to try it on and we had some time to kill in between parties. So I was with my husband and I said, "I'd like to try on this dress and this dress and this dress." And the sales attendant girl, at first I thought she was being rude. She was standing there like staring at me. And I was kind of going, "Hi, can you help me?" And
yeah.
she went,
Hello.
"Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sure. So she was like, "What size are you in getting the dresses and stuff?" And then she walks to the room and she turns around and she goes, "Can I just tell you, I really love you." And I was like, so I was with, it was funny because I was with Leanne Locken and Leanne said a lot of people recognize her from her voice. So I
Okay.
thought, and I've been
Yeah.
recognized in the States from housewives, from housewife aficionados.
Yeah.
So I thought, did she see Toronto Housewives and she's saying this? So I didn't know quite what to say. So I went, thanks. And she goes, it's Sarah, right? And I went, no, it's Kara. And she was like,
Oh,
oh. And she walked away and then she came back and she goes, I'm so embarrassed. I was freaking out. I thought you were Sarah Jessica Parker. And I was like, oh, that's okay. We can pretend I am if you want. I mean, if that makes you feel fun, we can take
yeah,
pictures and
definitely.
you can tell everybody.
It doesn't surprise me that that's your answer because I for sure that's who I would have thought too.
That's
And
funny.
Leanne,
How
by the
about
way,
you?
Leanne has been on the podcast
Oh
before.
my gosh, I love
She's
her.
great. Yeah, she's
That
very cool.
she is so good. I'm going to see her again in the Hamptons end of July. She is the funniest,
Yeah.
most unfiltered, and like my husband, who tends, kind of conservative, adores her. Those two get off like a house on fire. They're so funny together.
Nice, nice.
Really good.
What is the plan for you and the family for summer and all that?
So for the long weekend, we're going to head to visit friends in Torch Lake, Michigan, which I absolutely love. It's upstate Michigan near Bay Springs, Bay Harbor.
Okay.
Um, we have a friend there who is an 80-year-old widow, and we go to see her every July one long weekend. She was like a surrogate grandma to my kids when we lived in Florida for a bit. So she's just been in
Oh,
our lives, and yeah.
what was that like living in Florida?
Well, it was interesting. We keep a fishing boat there in the Keys,
Oh,
and we fish. We go deep sea fishing. When I say a fishing boat, I mean it's just a 31-foot contender. I was joking with my son the other day. I said, when you meet girls at, because we're going to dinner at the yacht club, I said, when you meet girls at the yacht club, are you going to tell them the name of my yacht? It's called the Green Gecko. Is the Green Gecko? And my son Hunter was like, yeah. And then I'll tell them it's 31 feet, and they'll be like, oh, sorry. But it's a fishing boat. We do deep sea fishing. We go halfway to the Bahamas. My husband throws the net to catch the bait. It's
awesome.
teamwork. It's awesome. It is really, really awesome. Yeah.
What have you guys caught? Like, what's some of the big stuff you caught?
Well, mahi, we fill the boat with mahi all the time.
Yeah,
We freeze it and bring it home. We eat what we catch. We're very big eat what we catch. If we catch something that, you're not supposed to catch or anything like that, my kids have the resuscitation kit where they will do the hypodermic needle to bring it back to life. I've seen them swim with the fish to make sure the fish is okay.
yeah.
We've caught, what else do we catch? Wahoo, mahi is the biggest one. Lots of mutton snapper,
Mm.
porgy, which a lot of people might not know because you don't see it on menus a lot because it's really hard to catch. Um, what's the other stuff we catch? Oh my gosh, we catch, so I can't even tell you how much we catch. We've never caught a swordfish because sword fishing is a different kind of fishing. So
Mm.
we like to do a lot of trolling, or we do wreck dropping. Um,
I caught some sailfish in
oh,
Mexico, which are
okay, and
kind of like a
that's
swordfish, kind
good.
of.
Did you get the necklace? Because we've caught sailfish, and when you catch a sailfish, you have to get the sailfish necklace. No, you didn't get the necklace.
Didn't get it.
Oh my goodness!
No. In
What
fact,
you're looking?
what we did is we took enough to eat that night for me and my family, and then just gave it to like the people that we were fishing with, and just said, like you guys
And they
give
smoke
it to
it.
your buddies or whatever, and they were like stoked.
Absolutely. They smoke it in Mexico really nicely.
Is that
It's
right?
really beautiful. It's like a smoked salmon, but it's absolutely delicious.
That
So
was
we
so.
caught our sailfish in Florida, so we had to do the catch and release, but took all the pictures and stuff. But when you
They're
catch a
freaking
sailfish, you're supposed
huge.
to
They're
get,
huge.
oh
Like
my gosh,
I was like holding it up, like, and it was way over my head.
crazy.
Like I would
It's
say 10
crazy.
feet, probably 10 feet
Oh yeah. Oh
ish.
yeah.
Eight
Yeah,
anyway.
there's a captain in Florida that has a major gash in his knee because one of those came randomly like into the boat and skewered it. Can you imagine? Like
Oh my god.
massive. I know. What are the chances
Just
that your
fishing
boat's
away
going to
and
be there
boom.
right into the boat? Yeah.
That's crazy.
But
I did a
yeah,
big
we've done tuna too. Go ahead.
oh, love tuna fishing. Yeah. I did a big trip up to the I can't remember what it's called in the Queen Charlotte's, and tons of salmon and tons of halibut, and it was expensive, but it was so worth it, so amazing.
Fishing is so great. Yeah, that's on my husband's bucket list and we will get there. But
Oh, really? Up to the Queen Charlotte's?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
he wants to do that. He really wants to do that. But we tend to go where we don't move the boat around. The boat stays in the Keys, so we tend to go down there. Oh,
Yeah.
but when my kids were little, I mean, it was very idyllic, but my husband I called myself the parked wife, but I'd get parked. So we'd go down there at Christmas and he'd park me in the Keys and he'd come back and forth. And I
Yeah.
stay down there with the kids, and the kids would go into school down there. and we'd be down there until May. And it was charming and idyllic. We drove around a golf cart. I mean, it was good living. The place we were, nobody locked their doors. It was like old fashioned, beautiful.
Wow.
And so they stayed friends with a lot of their friends there. And this lady who is in Torch Lake, Michigan for the summer has remained our friend for many, many years. And she's a widow and we go see her all the time now. And she loves us and she's tons of fun.
Oh, that's great
Yeah.
story. When you're saying the guy got the sail right through his kneecap or knee or whatever, it makes me think of, and I've asked this of a lot of guests over the years, and I'm curious if you have a near death story where you're like, holy crap, I could have just died there.
Okay, you have to know I'm a very dramatic person. So if my husband was on this podcast, he'd be falling out of his chair laughing, going, "She has a near death story every day."
He's like,
Okay.
bro, you got some time here?
Exactly. What is my near? I mean, I've been in airplanes when they've been hit by lightning. That was pretty bad. I thought I was gonna break. I was with my sister-in-law and I thought I was gonna break her hand because when you're in a plane and it gets hit by lightning and there's the discharge and everything, like you think your plane is going down. It's pretty
Yeah.
bad. Um, but aside from that, no, I like no, but I've been in bad car accidents, which I think is why I'm a nervous highway driver. And as I said, if you ask my husband every day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost died today. You have no idea what happened. I'm very dramatic. What can I say?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the plan for you for the next, like, how long in advance do you work out your schedule? Like, are you into 2024 now, or
No, but I am well into 2023. And so two really cool things happened to me this week that I will share with you because nobody else knows about this. Number one, Most Hated has been picked up by a university in England. It's going to be part of the curriculum
no?
for the cult of sociology. Yes, they're
That's
studying the cult of sociology in this university in Scarborough. And my book is a textbook. How
wow,
do you like that? Like,
right?
that's cool.
That's so cool.
I
Wow.
love that so much.
Yeah.
And then as part of my book tour, I'm going around upstate New York because Barnes and Noble has been really good. Indigo Canada has been amazing too. But I am going upstate New York for Barnes and Noble, and then they want me out in California, and I'm doing a really cool event August 22nd at the Grove in LA, which
Mm,
is really good. My publicist was like, "Oh, that's great. That's the golden ticket. That's like what we want. That's where you want to be."
mm,
So it's going to be a big event at the Grove, and it's at 7 o'clock at night, and I'm going to probably do a speaking thing first and then answer some Q&A and then sign books. But like my whole speaker circuit is really about this internalized female misogyny because you know there are answers for how women have to relate to women, which is celebrate your differences. And when you're angry, see, when guys get angry, they talk about it or they put each other in a headlock when they're little boys. Girls don't do that. We're told to put it in our pocket and take it home, and it festers and it grows and it gets ugly. And
mm.
we need to deal with anger maturely as it happens, communicating. And for whatever reason, they say Dr. Chesler says that men have middle friendships, whereas women, we're all in. We get one best friend and we tell her where the bodies are buried and we reveal everything to her. And then that friendship breaks up and oh my gosh, she has all the goods on us. What the heck? Whereas guys, they have these middle friendships. They never really get that deep with the other guys.
Well,
So
I
maybe
mean,
that's the answer.
that's the whole thing of, like, go golfing with your buddies or whatever, and you get home and your wife's like, "Oh, how's Dave's husband or wife, or how's the kids? How's his job?" Like, I don't fucking know. How would I know? I don't talk about that shit.
Exactly.
I smoke a bit of a joint
Exactly.
and crack a couple beers and play golf. Like, I don't ask that
It's so
stuff.
true. It's so true. Whereas we go out for coffee
So
and
bad.
we know everything. And then we have to look at the husband and go, oh man, so you're having trouble in bed with your wife the next time we see them, right? It's true. It's what we
So
do.
bad.
It's women. We are relational creatures, but we need to get it under control.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you. What a cool story your life has been, and what an honor to have you on the podcast. Yeah, I really enjoyed the time today. I told
Thank
your
you.
PR company, by the way, I'd need like maybe 15-20 minutes. So thank you for
Oh, my
damn near an
pleasure.
hour, it feels like here.
No, stop. I love it. I could talk to you all afternoon. You're really actually very good at your job.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm not blowing smoke. It really was fun to do this. Like some of them are torture and whatnot.
Oh, I
This
would
is a fun
imagine
one.
some are very
I did a
especially
fun one the other day.
podcasts too, right? Because like podcasts is like
They're
anybody
very
can do
personal.
them, right? And but for
Yeah,
me, it's like, well, I started this podcast with 20 years experience behind a mic.
yeah, it
So
shows.
yeah.
It
What you're,
definitely, just so you know, it shows.
oh, thank you. You're easy to find online. It's simply your name, Kara Alloway, on both Twitter, Instagram, of course, karaalloway.com.
Yep.
Uh, I
And my
guess
book
that's
is
it.
available at, like, many I'm always, if you wanna give a shout out to the independent bookstores, I love them. I think there's one called Mosaic in Vancouver, but they're
There
all
is.
across Canada. There's lots across Canada. I love the indie bookstores because 'cause they've been so good and so nice, and, thank you Indigo, thank you Barnes& and Noble, but, the big chains ones in
Right.
Australia, Boffin Books in Australia, which my kids laugh hysterically at. They go, "You gotta be kidding me. There's actually a bookstore called Boffin Books in Australia." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Australia. What do you expect?"
Mhm. Love it. Well, congrats on Most Hated, and Kara, it's great to
Thank
see
you.
you. Great to meet you. I'll follow along on socials, and we'll see you online.
I'll do the same. Thank you so much.